that basically all three of us are telling you the same stuff, and it's amusing because we are also all German, talking to a mostly international audience. Who here actually is German? More than I expected, actually. So, instead of a long introduction, let me just say I've been doing that for quite some time, what I'm telling you about. So I've experience with actually thousands of people, many of them from PR agencies. I love them the most because they're the most complicated. I know this stuff, trust me. And if you have any questions about my background, we can do that later. When I read the announcement, and that goes absolutely to what Sebastian said, and that there would be this evening and there was this kind of stuff doing, and I saw who was already on there, I actually also mailed me on and said, hey, I think there's something missing. And that would be two parts which I always find out in my workshops that people have a hard time understanding. The one part is personas, and both already touched a little bit on that. And the other one is the producer mindset, which I think is the core essence of what goes wrong with people not understanding how to do proper PR. Then, because we are in the startup sphere, we like to have a minimal viable product. I termed the coin minimal viable social media plan. And though this here is about PR, there's a strong connection with social media, and you should at least be aware about it. What Lutz described and Sebastian is more what I call the active side of PR. And there's also a passive side to it, what you should provide for everybody else. Like both of them told you, if the journalists come and want to write about you, there should be some stuff here. And there's also one thing I really like to stress is please understand your job. And it's part of your job to understand certain tools. Like Lutz said, it's craftsmanship to many degrees. And you cannot imagine the amount of times I have people sitting in front of me and said, okay, so you want to do social media. What's your target group? And they go, I don't know. Okay, what kind of business are you in? What kind of stuff are you saying? What's your pitch? And those are people who have been in that kind of stuff for many years. It's equally worse when it's salespeople, because they at least should know what they are selling. I'm going to upload the slides to my SlideShare account later tonight, and there's some additional slides for you about some tactics, already grayed out because I know I will not have time for that. In these kind of situations, sometimes always the problem is how to address you, because all of you are different, and part of that is actually that you might be a founder, you might be a PR person, you might be somebody totally from someplace else. For this, I'm going to assume that you are PR/marketing/communication, because let's face it, when you have 9 people, like Sebastian said, you're not going to have that specific person for marketing in a startup. You usually are the person responsible for that kind of area. And if you grow bigger, then you have somebody dedicated for marketing. But most of the time, I expect you to be that kind of person, and I also expect you to have a founder's mindset. Be not the, I'm a PR employee and I work from 9 to 5, but if you chose startup land, it actually means you also chose part of this founder mindset. One of the biggest things, and you will recognize a lot, and you read my presentation, you looked my list up, is who are you talking to, because that very much makes the messaging right. And a lot of persona talking is also going towards what a customer usually are, put into boxes, but you can use the same approach for PR. And persona basically means you take a little post-its. I'm a huge fan of post-its. I just took a whole batch home from the 3M booth in South by, is to write down names and ages, who they are, what kind of gender they are, what kind of nationality they are, to trigger through and say, okay, we want to get out our message to somebody specific, and these are the people we will be talking to. And I just chose 3 very funky examples. Let's think about Lisa, 29, loves Vogue, is an agency girl and lives in Munich. And now we have the fancy thingies from the iPhones, what he just presented, the Zagat things. Is she going to be likely an influencer? Is she going to be likely to put out on her blog or whatever that she saw something? No, because she's a follower, she's a consumer. So whatever, if you want to reach her, you need to reach the traditional media, which is not only true for Germany. Both said very strongly about the German media, but it's also very true for European media, that traditional American social media does not work here. And the same goes for PR. Journalists still have a very, very strong power through their reporting. At the same time, we have Pablo, 34, he's from Madrid, he's unemployed, he calls himself a tech blogger, but he's in Spanish. Just by that description, if you know that kind of person, you know so much about this person. Like, they will likely not speak English very well. This is the reason why Pablo is blogging in Spanish. You will have that with a lot of the European markets. Like, they were talking about present something in ready-made packages. That includes having translation in the major languages ready. And you also may have Jory. She actually is a real person. She's part of the founder tree of Blogger, huge conference for women, 5,000 women. There last year, even President Obama made a stop, made a video conferencing in there, huge amount of voters. She's a fresh mother, and you want to be at the Blogger conference. You want to be there, and you want to talk to her. You're not going to get to her because she has so much on her mind, and she has people working for it. But by starting to put names to people, you can describe it very much. We did at Beta House a workshop, and there was one guy from a startup who says, we have a picture sharing service. Like, there are not already too many of those. But we started out as party pictures or as mums with their kids. Because if it's party pictures and you have your party girl or your party boy who wants to share these kind of things, you have a totally different way of presenting that to the public than if it's the moms. Because if it's party, it's about everybody can see how awesome I am. If it's about the mom, you're going to have security because they want their family and the little people to be in a small, close-knit community. Assign names to those people, and when you then talk about your product, also with your product guys, you can tell them, hey, and how do we fit Lisa in there? And then you start thinking differently. Who are you actually talking to? It will be very different if we talk to early adopters or testers. I'm a typical person, and this is where the feedback comes through. Most people in companies and startups get to know me when I write them nice long emails about what they are doing wrong. Kind of a hobby of mine. I'm a beta tester. I'm never a customer. I'm doing translation for startups for so many years. I'm never going to use them. I have no interest in using them. But I know how bad certain translations are. So it's my hobby to sometimes do translation. Just give it to them. I'm totally different and not the normal woman you would meet out in the street like the Lisa girl before, who could transport your message differently. I'm also a multiplicator. I'm partly an influencer. When you look at my numbers on Twitter and on Google+, that looks awesome, but it depends. I have a very specific audience, which is very tech-driven, which is very early adopter kind of people. It's very European, very international. I might be the right person to talk to, but at the same time I might be the totally wrong person to talk to. Who are you talking to? Where do you want to send out a message? And the same what Sebastian and Lutz said, how to package everything. And also you need to think about, is it industry news or is it going to be the topic news? I have an example later of a baby spoon, which is like 3D printing, Indiegogo campaign, awesome. Do you want to be on TechCrunch? Then you stress this kind of stuff. You want to sell it to the market, and for example, there's a big German publication called Eltern.de, Parents.de, which is like the major, as far as I'm told, I don't have kids, the major thing. If you want to talk to the possible buyers, you will not stress, oh, we did it in 3D printing and we are basically an Indiegogo campaign, because that mother or that father is going to Indiegogo what? No interest. So who are you addressing? Which network is it? And this is why I said we all tell you the same stuff. The end result, the best results can be paper, like the real printed magazine, the real printed thing. For being on TechCrunch is nice, but to get your startup customers, being in Berliner Tagesspiegel, which is, I don't know how big a local newspaper, I only lived here for 6 months, can be so much more relevant to you if you're looking for customers. If you're looking for funding, the report in the local newspaper is wasted time. You want to go for that comment on TechCrunch or whatever. One of the things we say no to things is my personal favorite. It always means that startups, especially the founders, go for, oh, we don't do that stuff. We are a startup, we don't have time, we say no. That's the part where I want to smack you every single time. Because if you look at the traditional stuff, you can learn so much from it. You have to adapt it because startups are so very different. And especially PR for a startup is extremely different, much more intense, much more work and everything. But this is the traditional customer lifecycle model. You can also use it later for your customers. is a customer maybe unaware of us. And this is why 600 Kinder is fitting, as well as SoundCloud and Gitzy. Those are the 3 favorites from Berlin as tech startups. Most journalists will have heard, if in any way they have written about Berlin, they've heard those 3 names. They kind of already know who they are, what the founders are, because everybody wrote about them. They are already interested. But that is also your chance, because everybody is writing about those 3, when you can tell people, we are another startup from Berlin, and not one of those 3. Journalists will be interested in you because you're something new, you're something fresh. Awesome, tell me more about you. Service and grow, which in a traditional sense is like you provide support or you upsell people. Service means I keep you informed about the stuff I'm doing. We build up relationships, and from time to time I tell you what our new plans are, what our new outlook is, and also can grow you. Hey, we have plans currently, and I see you have an upcoming edition, you have an upcoming report, you have an upcoming white paper. Can we contribute in any kind of way? You also have those inactive journalists who don't like you anymore, or your blogger or whatever. Go through these kind of models. And that's the biggest part. This is the core of my business, why I earn still my money after so many years, because people don't do that. You are a producer. In that role, you sit here today, you are a producer, and you need to put on the producer mindset all the time. That includes that if you're in tech or if you're in startup land, your Facebook account is not personal. Your Facebook account is your mechanism of working with other people. There were some people who raised their hand with B2B. There was like some in the back probably. For you it still might be LinkedIn and Xing. But for everybody else, in current times, that's Facebook. And you don't have a closed-off Facebook account. I see a few women here. That also means for you, you have a photograph of yourself. Not an icon, not a cat or anything else like women like to have. A real photograph where I can look at you, where I can recognize you. I'm a kid of the 70s, and my father found it very funny to make videos of me, show it to the whole family, and everybody laughed how funny that was. I hate photos. I hate videos. I will be the first one to put up this stuff because that's part of my job. It's not important if you like it or not. It's important for you to make it work. And I mentioned PR agencies before. I nearly had a tantrum one time because I was going through a series with the same PR agency, and it was in a time of Twitter, and the constant feedback was, we don't like Twitter, and this is why we don't recommend it to our customers. And the bad part is they were serious about it, and they were proud of that. And that's the point when I started including that line, you're a producer, not a consumer, and please stop being an amateur, because that's amateur behavior. You are in this job, and this is like, Sebastian and I had a conversation about that. If your job is PR, your job is to do social media, if you like it or not. You have to make it work. You don't have to love it, and when you go home, you can say, screw that, don't want to do that, but this is your job, and this is part of your job description. My other favorite, I co-moderate the Facebook group on the Berlin Startup Facebook group and the job groups, and I actually look at the profiles to see if you post something, if it's startup related, if it's from somebody from Berlin. And we had somebody looking for, oh, we want to have a new project, want to have participants, and then you click through and you see LX with no friend button, 5 followers, and nothing else on there. And he was participating in a real conversation, presenting himself as a possible partner for business. And then you look on that. And then you go, maybe not. Maybe that is not a person I should take seriously because he doesn't take me seriously when I look at this kind of stuff. You want to think about shareability, and this is where you keep the designers in check. This is actually a wallet made out of plastic or whatever with Berlin motors. I love Berlin. I'm still in this everything with Berlin phase. I wanted to share that and say, look here, awesome. I couldn't. It's a flash-based website because some designer probably had many of those before. We don't like share buttons. It destroys our design. Those are the same kinds who put all the social buttons down below the fold because it destroys the design. Those people don't understand their job. Because currently, that's a small startup here from Berlin, they rely on, this is Pinterest material, right away. This is where you could say, Let me share 15 things of that. I can't do anything of it. Do I know how to make a screenshot? Yes, as you can see. Do I know how to share that? Yes. Do I want to? No. There's other things I can do instead. This is the spoon I was talking about. Really nice campaign on Indiegogo, which is Kickstarter competitor. And I had some feedback as usual. And one of the feedbacks I gave him is because he did 3D printing. He noted, and he said my favorite hipster sentence: I avoid the buzzwords 3D printing is so 2000. That's along the lines of, we say no, we are a startup. Guess how Google Alert works? There are currently people out there who do 3D printing stories, trade magazines, but also the big things like the hipster thing to do now. And we want stories. And all you get is like how to get something for your iPhone. Boring, nothing new. Hey, something for babies, and there's a story behind it. They would love to write about that, but they will not find it because they avoided the buzzwords 3D printing. If you don't like it, hide it somewhere else. But be a producer and think, this person who's a journalist will be searching for 3D printing and parents, family. You put yourself in their shoes, and then you start writing your different stuff. And also very new for many startups, you are not revolutionary. The amount of times, and I would say that Elaine probably says something similar, we are the best, greatest new startup in town and we are awesome, look at me, look at me. That's the basic summary of we are the market leading and new, and that's skip. There are so many other stories to choose from. Don't fall into this trap. And if your founder makes you fall into that trap, send them to some people who tell them otherwise. Guess how many people can reblog that, journalist or normal blogger? You have to rework the whole sentence, because I don't write as, oh, we are a startup because it's my blog, it's my paper, it's my magazine or whatever. Then I have to remove all this idiotic, oh, we are so awesome references. Oh, that's a lot of work. Let me just go to the next one. The one with the nicer story in there, and the pictures, and the ready-made copy and paste thing I can take. Awesome. And you are out if you do that. And this includes also something, you're a producer, you have a Crunchbase profile. All of you want to be written up by TechCrunch. How many of you have a Crunchbase profile for your company? 2. Sebastian, have you updated your Crunchbase profile to your new position at LinkedIn?
I didn't.
I made a search for startups from Berlin, and I think the result was like 50. All of them want to be written up, so I have this guy from Paris who has a story which is okay, and today I'm the TechCrunch writer and I want to write my European story. And there's this thing from Berlin, which is equally interesting, just want to write a European story. Oh, they have a filled out Crunchbase profile. They don't. Hello, France. This is how simple it goes. You see something like Berlin startup maps, you add yourself. You see something, European startup, you add yourself, you put it into your list, and next time you pivot, you give it to your intern and say, go update that. Minimal social media product. In the very essence, like the active side, what they describe is there, but please do claim your usernames. That's one of the biggest things. I remember, Mariana, you actually tweeted out, blah, 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 and Gitsy is also there. And what was the reaction? Oh no, we're not Gitsy, we're Gitsy News. But they're not Gitsy News on Facebook. And if I remember correctly, the Blinkist is on Facebook, and it's Blinkist on Twitter, right? Have a consistent naming. It must not be necessarily like your name, because most of them are taken. But use it, and please, Facebook and Twitter are not your social media home bases, they are outlets. Your home base is your blog. Your home base is also going to be the part where you say, this is where I link back to. If I'm a Google Plus user and you share something on Facebook, I will not link to you because I don't like you, I don't like Facebook. But if it's your blog or your website or your newsroom, it's like neutral ground. And you get more backlinks, which means better Google ranking and everything else. If you're on Google Plus and I mention you, even if you just have a basic Google Plus profile, it will allow me to share it to you. If you have a Twitter profile, I can say so-and-so, link to your stuff back, and it allows people to discover you. which is so relevant, because there's one person who reads from another person, and then it goes to a journalist, and then it goes into the Spanish realm, where it gets back from Pablo to the person in Portuguese who can also read it. We are so interconnected. It's good to spread the messages everywhere, but always make sure they come back to your home base. And there are backlinks. That's what already Sebastian said. We call it newsroom, which is just a fancy way of saying your website is where you attract your customers. Your blog is where you put on the other stuff you want to put up, including every single press release, including every kind of information. Hey, we will be at this event. Meet our team. This is how our team looks like. This is the kind of t-shirts the team is going to be wearing. And this kind of stuff. But the newsroom is for journalists, and please always say media or journalists, and never put bloggers in the same bucket. Journalists will hate you for it, because they don't like to be put in the same stuff with bloggers. Bloggers know that stuff and go for media. You will have photos of your founders, of your products, you will have screenshots, you will have printable resources, and you also will have web-ready resources. So often, Lutz said we made a nice media package that included high-resolution images ready for print. Hey, I want to write a story about you. Do you have a nice color picture of your founders? I, for a longer time, had only black and white pictures, and I lost out on certain reportings on my book. We said, oh, you just have a black and white picture? Yeah, everybody else we talk about is in color. Let's talk to you next time. This is the kind of stuff you need to pay attention to and say, okay, I'll have color pictures. One of the most important things when you do your own blog or website is a concept called sending into the void. Meaning you will send into nothingness. You don't expect any kind of responses. You present the universe with this kind of information. Why? Because when the journalist comes along, when the blogger comes along, the multiplicator or whoever, they should be able to discover a lot of stuff. Ooh, they're already in business like that. Ooh, they were already featured here. Oh, this is what some person already wrote about that. Give them something to have the little doggy here. Put some flesh on the bones. Hi, Gabi. One of the big things, and this is why I mentioned the German part, include audio and video. Like we have said before, if you go to conferences or talk shows, let's say I talk to you today, you're from London, you want to bring me on the BBC. One of the things the BBC will be really interested in is how bad my accent is. And for example, if you have a German startup, if you have a French startup, one of the biggest things is provide proof that the people you're working with actually can speak mostly understandable English, and people will be much easier to talk to when you go for conferences, video, audio, and any kind of stuff. Nearly finished? My favorite. So Gabi is actually an iOS application which is really cool, huge PR on all the big tech things. You log in with your Facebook and they provide a collection of your best friend's stuff. Really nice, really good. I wanted to link to that, and then I went to their press page. For press inquiries, please contact Gabi's head of communication, Margaret Imbert. I'm supposed to send an email. Or I can take the other part where I have all the information ready and the screenshot, and by the way, that keyboard looked really great. Let's talk. If you have that kind of stuff because you don't have time, make stuff for me. Give me stuff. Give me the photos and everything else. So if I had a chance to write about you, you don't have to answer email. I bet you she had a lot of emails because it really is a cool product. She could have avoided 80% of the work if you just provided what everybody else wanted to have. Friends from a really nice thing, fanpage Karma, they have the logos there, which is awesome, and they have the pictures of the founders there. How likely do you think that's going to be in a magazine? Is it cute? Yes. Is it interesting fitting with everybody else? Yes. But yeah, let's take the next one. And it's small things like that which will decide, and like what you said about the journalist, the typical journalist who works in a traditional setting has an attention span of 2.5 hours. They come out of their weekly, their morning report, whatever they're doing, at about 11 o'clock, and they have an idea, then they call you until 11, 12, and if you haven't answered back until 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, they're gone because they have to be finished at 4. can you send me a photograph? Can you send me a description? Can you do this? Can you do that? You need to have it prepared already so you can just send it out and say, how much do you want? Get to know yourself and make an assessment how you work. Everybody is different. I'm, for example, a very strong tools person. I always default back to that. Get to know how you are, what you can do, and what you're really good at, and stick with that. And also, go through your different personas and think about which is the most valuable target for you now. Because customers may not be the interesting part for you currently. If, for example, you say, I want to go for the worldwide market, maybe Europe is an interesting prospect first. You can limit it a little bit. Make a simple plan for what should I provide. So if somebody who's interested, not just journalists, think of me, I'm your sometimes blogger, I'm your sometimes Google Pluser, I see something and I can spread it out. I can be the person who provides ripple effects for you, because other people can pick it up. I'm the so-called backstage posse. I'm not the rock star in front, but if enough friends from backstage say, ooh, this is cool, the rock star in front will say, and those are the TechCrunch and the GigaOhms and everything else, they will say, hey, the people I trust, the people actually I can stand to be around, they told me all the same thing. This is cool, you have to look at it. It's not always as easy if you have something with hardware. Software works too. Think about being a producer everywhere. You see something interested in here, make a photograph of it, you put it on your Instagram, which also is public and everything else, and build up a public perception around yourself. So if you go from one place or another, what can I talk to you about? What are you good for? Like, for example, when you're here in Berlin, you have certain connections. You are the guy with the sushi restaurants, why not? That will get you attention and send it into the void. The tactics I have in here, as in not looking really, except the one, please keep your interns in check. What will you guess this is? Especially knowing that Berlin also is one of those centers for BDSM.
It's a VC ad, right?
It's a blog, and by the way, Tumblr is not a blog unless your customer base is 15-year-old angst-ridden teenage girls. Mouse and Slave is the name of a tech startup, and that's their blog, and somebody found this video to be interesting. Of course, it's a screenshot made for this kind of presentation, but the more you work with different people, you have often changing people, you have employees who are only there for a short amount of time. Startups also like to say, the founders, we don't do hierarchies. We're a startup. You need structure, and structure, between other things, mean if you have an intern doing your blog, doesn't know what they're doing, you have an approval process until you can trust that intern to not do these kind of things. Because as funny as this looks, people were not linked to that. They will be offended by that in part, especially if you're coming from America, and that was your one shot. And you don't want to do that. And all of the different areas we're talking about is very simple. Use your common sense, provide the basics, is exactly what Lutz said, exactly what Sebastian said, and you can reach so far, skip away everything else which you currently don't have the capacity or the resources to do. And if you don't know how to do it, this is why you hire the professionals. You hire the professionals to come in, bring you up to speed so you don't have to waste the time surfing around on Google. And it's a funky thing, but actually books, to some degree, they are existing and they have interesting summarized information about how to do this stuff, even for startup land. And so you can move on from there and be really, really effective and not be over time, for example. We do have a little bit more time for questions afterward, right?
Yes, of course. We're going to set up a discussion panel.
Awesome.
Right away, so.
Thank you very much. And